Merrill Memo with Matthew Dickerson from Dubbo Regional Council.
You're listening to Tony Graham on Binge 91.5, and today I'm talking to Matthew Dickerson, the Mayor of Dubbo Regional Council, after meetings on Thursday evening. G'day, Matthew.
Fresh from our very last council meeting of the year, Tony.
Yeah. So I'll just go through some of the things that you've been up to recently before we get to the council meeting. So you've returned from leading a local government delegation to Japan. That was, I think, the sister city relationship. Then there was the official opening of the RFS Aviation Centre of Excellence. That's a council initiative started in 2015, which has been very successful. I believe you've attracted a lot of funds, built a lot of infrastructure there, and it's good for the region. We've got the Western Region Commission Officers Dinner. We've had the Old Dubbo Jail official launch of Life of Crime publication and exhibit, and a new touchscreen featuring Matthew Dickerson, no doubt. We've got the Wellington Senior Citizens launch with some Christmas poetry, probably from Matthew Dickerson again, I'd say. So what's it like once you've got out of the jail precinct? Matthew, were you elated, were you?
Elated, I was, absolutely elated. So, yeah, a few things there. Just one thing on the tour to Japan. It wasn't actually part of either of our sister cities. It was a different tour. Okay. This one, I went to a place called Kahuku Town, and it was actually quite an interesting delegation. We had 5 people from Australia and New Zealand. As you said, I led that delegation over there, and it was really just to share ideas with Japanese local government and talk about how we do things and how they do things. So, yeah, very interesting. But, yep, lots of things over the last week, so always a busy week. And I didn't see you at the Senior Citizens Christmas lunch. I thought you might have been there, Tony.
I did. Bye, Matthew. What were you doing there? That's what I would like to know.
As you predicted, I was just doing some Christmas poetry for them.
Well, it's a great thing. Our senior citizens need to be respected and they need to be treasured as part of our society still and be engaged with the community. So it's a good thing to be doing. So now the next subject I guess we'd be looking at here is the Dubbo Regional Sports Council Playing Field Improvement Fund. So tell us about the results.
So this is actually an interesting one, Tony. This is a fund that we have available for any sporting clubs, sporting groups in Dubbo and Wellington to come forward and apply for some of these funds. And there's a couple of little rules with them. The first thing is that they've got to go 50-50. We can't provide more than 50% of the funds for whatever project they want to do. So it's something where we're trying to share that workload with the sporting clubs. Obviously, it's all about improving the playing fields with some infrastructure in some way, so it's not to be used for things like jerseys or football boots, that type of thing. It's about improving the infrastructure. So there were 3 applications in this latest round, maximum of $20,000 for any individual project. But again, often you don't go as far as that in terms of that. We're expecting whatever amount they need for it. So the Dubbo City Junior Rugby League Association put in a request for $5,900 for the repair of the portable grandstands at Apex Oval out of field, so that was successful. And then we had 2 from Wellington. The Wellington Cowboys Rugby League Football Club put in an application for $2,866 for the Kennard Park PA system upgrade, and so that was successful. And then the Cowboys also put in one for the canteen commercial fridge upgrade or replacement there, and that was $1,700 they received in that one there. So if there's any sporting clubs out there that have got some money and they want to do some improvements to the physical infrastructure of the club, of the grounds there, then I'd encourage them to put those applications in.
Yeah, okay. And this week, a very hot topic, of course, has been the controversy around, public toilets, both in Wellington and in Dubbo. So a few cracks in the system there, I believe.
Only minor cracks. So this
yes.
This did actually come up at the council meeting. There were some questions on notice, and you don't see this used that often, questions on notice. It's a way for a councillor to bring forward a topic that he or she wants to see at a council meeting without needing a notice of motion associated with it. And the answers, I think it puts a bit of light on this whole issue. when you say a bit of controversy, I don't necessarily say there's been controversy associated with it. There's been some people who have been spreading some misinformation, and I would almost go so far, Tony, to say stirring up some trouble with our 3D printed toilets, but I really think it's a bit of a storm in a teacup. There's a few things there. The first thing is design, and I know this is something close to your heart we've talked about often. The design of the toilets that we printed at Lions Park West Dubbo was a design that gave you the ability to walk into a male toilet or a female toilet and have multiple cubicles. So in the female toilet, there's 5 cubicles. In the male, there's 2 cubicles, and then a urinal that could fit 3 people at it. So you can have 10 people plus a separate disabled toilet all going to the toilet at the same time. So 11 people it could cater for, and basically using those toilets, plus you've got the ability to be washing your hands, etc. afterwards. Some people have been saying that all toilets should now be built as a single cubicle style, just like you've got in Cameron Park. And of course, the problem there is, the first thing is, you can only have one person using the cubicle at the same time, including after they've gone to the toilet at the basin washing their hands. So you're tying up that space for a long period of time, which means that you've then got to build a lot more, but we only have a certain budget. And with Cameron Park in Wellington, as you know, that's restricted dramatically the amount of people that can go to the toilet at the same time. And then that means that, for example, a tourist bus that wants to stop there in Wellington, inject some money into the economy, well, they're less likely to stop there because obviously you've only got the 2 single cubicles and the disabled toilet there at the moment. So I'm not convinced that's the best way to go all the time.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, when the buses do stop, they're stuck there for 45 minutes or longer. They don't ever come back. That experience, and the people, of course, not terribly happy either. So it's a very interesting thing to look at, the logistics of how you put toilets together, isn't it?
That's right. And if you did that single cubicle style with all your toilets going forward, you would do 2 things. You'd increase the amount of money you spent on toilets, and the second thing is that you'd need a lot more space because they obviously take up a lot more space. I really don't see what the problem is with the style of toilets we've printed at Lions Park West Dubbo, because again, I mean, I've got children. I've got 3 female children, 1 male child. When they were young, they're all adults now, but when they were young, if myself was going somewhere and I had my daughters with me, or my wife had my son with her, then if you'd go to the toilet and they were very young, you'd take them in the toilet with you. So you weren't worried about sending them into a toilet and concerned about that. I think parents do that all the time. So I really don't understand the risks associated with the toilet where you go in. I think value for money wise and the amount of land that you use, you're better off with that style of toilet. Some people have said, is this an old style toilet and the cubicle style is new style? Not at all. It's just 2 different choices that different organisations made. Council in the past made the decision with the Cameron Park toilets. We made the decision with this style of toilet. And it's not that neither is wrong or right, it's just different styles for different areas. People have criticised the 3D printed toilet because of that, but if we decided to go to the single cubicle style, you could still use the 3D printed concept. The 3D printing allows us to deliver toilets at a cheaper price, allows you to deliver infrastructure in a faster process, so the concept is still good. And again, some people have pointed to that cracking. Well, if you have a large slab of concrete, whether it be on a footpath, whether it be on a brick wall, you get cracking, and I'm talking about small cracks that are there in that, and the idea was always to paint that at some stage, but we wanted to see how it went in the weather. So again, much ado about nothing, I feel. Still think it's a progressive project. And you mentioned that RFS Aviation Centre of Excellence. What I found interesting was that some people said, well, nowhere else in Australia has this 3D printed concept been used, so that's a sign that it shouldn't have been used. But if you took that attitude, you'd never do anything new, Tony. And at the RFS Aviation Centre of Excellence, the Minister, Jihab Dib, actually commended the RFS on going forward with that, because he said, we used to look overseas and see what they did there and then copy it, but now we're leading the way. And he made the point that nowhere else in Australia do you have an aviation centre of excellence like the RFS here, so people are looking at how we do things here in Dubbo rather than looking elsewhere to see how you do things. So if it's good enough for the RFS to be the first, I think it's good enough for council to be the first.
Yeah, and apparently there's no structural problem with these new toilets. They're working quite okay, and like you say, it's a little bit of a cosmetic issue, which the project hasn't been completed yet because it's going to be painted and brushed and work in progress until it's finished.
Yeah, that's right. And we always wanted to see how it performed. We I had the idea that putting an oxide into the concrete and getting to the point where you never had to paint it would be interesting to investigate. And so they've had some time to look at that now. But for this one, they'll paint it. And again, you'll fill those cracks before you paint it. You would never know those cracks are there. It's not as if the place is going to fall apart. So again, it seems interesting that some people who are meant to be focused on promoting Dubbo are very quick to be critical of Dubbo when they should be talking about what a innovative, progressive focus that is. But also, this is a way potentially that we can solve some of the housing shortages that we have, because this process of construction is faster and cheaper, which is what we need with our housing at the moment.
Yeah. And we've been talking to Matthew Dickerson. Thank you very much, Matthew. Matthew is the Mayor of the Dubbo Regional Council.
Thanks, Tony. Always my pleasure.
Mayoral Memo with Matthew Dickerson from Dubbo Regional Council.